When it comes to designing websites or mobile apps, up until a few years ago, the most popular tool of choice would have been Adobe Photoshop. Then in 2010, a new product made its appearance on the market. I'm talking about Sketch from Bohemian's Coding. Especially in the last couple of years, it became a great alternative to Photoshop. Cheaper and completely dedicated to UI/UX designers, it gradually stole a lot of designers' hearts and went on to form a loyal and growing community. Still, a lot of people never left the Adobe ecosystem, as you can't really do everything with Sketch. And most importantly, this software is only available for Mac, so all the Windows users could never switch to it even if they wanted to. So, why would I use Adobe XD when there are already other tools out there? The short answer is because it will be the next big thing. It will soon become one of the best, if not the best tool out there for UI/UX design. Adobe XD, which stands for Experience Design and was previously known as Project Comet, was launched in February 2016. It was initially released as a preview version and only for Mac, with a very limited amount of features. Month after month, Adobe released new updates, adding more and more features based on the feedback received by its growing user base. At the time of this recording, Adobe XD has grown into a pretty solid piece of software, available for Mac, Windows 10, iOS and Android. So if you need more reasons that will show you why Adobe XD is a great choice as a design tool, here's a few. It's really built for UI/UX design. This is probably the main reason that convinced me to switch almost instantly from Photoshop. Adobe XD's user interface has been designed to make the job of a UI/UX designer as easy and straightforward as possible. The most common tools and features like shapes, borders, shadows, blurs, alignment options are always visible on the screen, and you don't need to look for them in hidden menus or panels. Way less clicks are needed to accomplish the same things you would do on Photoshop. This seems like a small difference, but as soon as you give Adobe XD a try, you'll realize how uncomfortable the whole Photoshop experience seems in comparison. Photoshop wasn't built to design websites or mobile apps, it's a photo editing software. Adobe XD is the natural upgrade for those designers who are still using Photoshop and want to remain within the Adobe ecosystem. Adobe XD is available for Windows. Not everyone likes or can afford a Mac, and Windows designers and companies who could not use Mac-only tools like Sketch will finally be able to adopt a new software totally dedicated to UI/UX design. And we're talking about a lot of people. Well, you could say, I'm a Mac user already, why should I care about Windows? As this software will be available on all platforms, it will probably achieve a large adoption, and as a result, a solid community will grow over time, with tons of useful resources available for everyone. Adobe XD is really fast. It's surely the first thing I noticed when I first tried it. It starts up in less than a second and it can handle files with several dozens of artboards without ever showing any sign of slowness. Everything feels smooth, fast and pleasant. This is because Adobe XD was built completely from scratch. Only the features that are really needed were included, and great performance is one of the core objectives that Adobe set for this product. It's exactly the opposite of what Photoshop is. Still a great piece of software, but based on some old legacy code and packed with hundreds of features you don't need for UI/UX design, which makes the whole overall experience sluggish and painful at times. And when compared to Sketch, even in this case Adobe XD seems to be in a different league in terms of performance. The repeat grid feature. This is just awesome, a huge time saver when designing pages or screens with lists of repeating objects and trying to decide which layout works best. With the repeat grid, you can create a list of objects and manage its content in a blink of an eye. We will see this feature in detail later in the course. Prototype, share, and collaborate. Adobe XD is not just a tool to design user interfaces. Using its prototype feature, you can easily create an interactive prototype of the project you're designing by simply connecting links and buttons of your app or website to other screens or pages included in the project, choosing a type of transition and previewing the final result on your machine or a mobile via the Adobe XD mobile app. You're also able to share your prototype with your team or stakeholders, who in return can post comments to the whole project or to specific pages. Having all of these features under the same roof is pretty remarkable. As far as I know, no other tools offer that at the moment. This is just the beginning. At the time of this recording, Adobe XD is still a beta version. Adobe is working hard on improving the product with monthly updates, and the plans they shared for the future look really promising. Also, let's not forget that Adobe has a lot of money and a big marketing firepower. The app hasn't been officially launched yet, but you can already see some big names and companies being associated with the XD brand. Also, they already have a very solid user base to sell this product to, all the Adobe CC subscribers. For them, it will be an obvious choice to give XD a try. So I really think that there is a bright future for this product. So I really hope I gave you enough reasons to convince you that you made the right choice by signing up to this course. Let's move on with the next chapter. In this lecture, I'll give you a quick overview of the Adobe XD interface. As I already mentioned, this course has a learn by doing kind of approach. So we won't spend too much time on each individual tool or feature. You will see all of them in action later when we will be designing our app. Alright, so what you see here is how Adobe XD looks like by default. As you can see, it's a very basic interface, but it's very functional. It allows you to perform the most common actions with just a few clicks. At the very top of the screen we have the Apple menu bar. From here you can do all the basic stuff like saving and opening files, exporting assets, and pretty much every sort of operation that is available on Adobe XD. I suggest you explore all of these options, but in this course I will teach you all the most common shortcuts so that you will rarely have to use this menu. So below the menu bar we have a top horizontal panel right here. The main thing to pay attention here is the design and prototype switch. As you might guess, when you are in design mode you can make all those changes impacting the visual side of your project, while when you're in prototype mode you'll be able to give life to your designs and create an interactive prototype by connecting the screens all together. We will see this later on. Moving to the right side of the screen we have the zoom drop-down menu, which I personally never use as we already have a zoom tool on the left side of the screen and it works great. So I only have a quick look here to check what's the current zoom level, but I never change the zoom using this control. Then the little phone icon next to it enables the device preview feature, which allows you to preview your project on your mobile phone by using the Adobe XD app, which is available for both iOS and Android. This feature works really well and it shows you exactly how your design will look on a real device. Then next to it we have a little play icon which allows you to preview your project directly on your computer. You can see anything at the moment because our project is empty, but we'll see this later on during the course. And finally we have a share icon which allows you to share your prototype with your clients, co-workers or stakeholders in order to get direct feedback on it without having to go through emails or chat. On the left side of the screen we have our toolbar with all the tools available on Adobe XD. When you hover on each individual tool you can see a little letter in brackets, which is the shortcut you're going to use to activate them. We'll use these shortcuts all the time so that it's going to be faster to access these tools. So we're going to start with the first tool on top, which is the select tool, or letter V. This allows us to select any object on the screen and to move them around as we want. For example, I'm going to select our artboard because I want, for example, to change the feel. Then we have the rectangle tool, which draws rectangles, obviously. Then we switch to the select tool. As you can see, I can select all of them and delete them. The ellipse tool, creating ellipses and circles. I'm gonna show you later how to draw perfect circles. The line tool, creating lines. Then we have the pen tool, which is very useful to create custom shapes. Then the text tool, obviously, it's going to be used all the time. You can create a single line of text or a text block like this, like a paragraph. And then we have the artboard tool, which allows you to create new artboards on your canvas by selecting a list of devices available here on the right side. For example, if we want a tablet, Android here, that's what it does. If you're on another iPhone, there it is. And then you can just click on the screen multiple times to create more. And then in the end we have the zoom tool, which enables us to zoom in, zoom out. You can use the mouse wheel to zoom all the way. And then at the bottom we have symbols, which is something we're going to see later and explain a bit better what they are. And the layers panel at the very end, which is very important and we're going to activate from now on. Here you're going to see all the layers that you're going to use. Alright, so now we're going to move to the right side of the screen and we're going to explore the options included in this panel here. We're going to start from the top where there's some alignment options. Let me show you very quickly what this can do. Let me zoom back in, get rid of this. So if we create, let's say, 3 squares, we can select them all, and then by using this icon here, distribute horizontally. As you can see, there's an even space between them. The same applies if we do this, for example. And we click on this option here at the end. It's gonna distribute them vertically. In terms of alignment, we can do this sort of operations. Click on the first one here, and they're all aligned at the top. You can do the same, aligning at the bottom, and so on and so forth. The next feature up here is the repeat grid, which, as I previously mentioned, is one of the most amazing features in Adobe XD right now. I'm going to show you quickly what we can do with it. So we have a little shape here. We're going to click on repeat grid, and as you can see, some green handles are going to appear around the shape, and once you drag them, the shape, the rectangle, will be repeated for as many times as you want. This feature will be incredibly useful when we're going to deal with layouts or list of repeatable objects, and it will be a great time saver, and we're going to see this later on in the course. The next set of features we're going to look at are the so-called Boolean operators, which you can find up here next to the repeat grid. Let me show you very quickly what we can do with it. I'm going to create 2 circles. So once we select them, both, and use the first option, which is the add option, as you can see, there's now only one shape as they've been combined. And now it's draggable and movable around, no problem. Now we're going to undo that, select them again, and use the second option, which is the subtract one. And as you can see, one circle has been subtracted from the other one. We have a sort of a moon here. So we're going to do the same and select the third option, which is the intersect one. And as you can see, only the intersection between the 2 circles has been kept. And as the last option, we're going to use the exclude overlap, which will delete the overlapping section between the 2 circles. So going back to our panel on the right, we're going to look at this section here, where you can have control over the size and the position of your objects on screen. I'm going to show you a little example. We're going to create a rectangle here, and as you can see on the right, the width and height values are changing as I drag the rectangle. That's basically the value in pixels of its size. And once I design my rectangle, I can change from here the size by using the keyboard. And there's a little option here, a little lock. If you click on it, it's called lock aspect. When you click on it, basically you can change only one side of the rectangle, and the other side will adapt accordingly without changing the aspect of the rectangle. Next to the size values, we have the position values, represented in X and Y coordinates. As you can see, we can move around the rectangle, and these values will change. If we put it at the top left of the screen, coordinates are 0, 0, because that's where ideally the screen starts in our artboard. And then the last option right here is the orientation, which you can change directly from here, and the orientation of your shape will change. I never use that because I'm just more comfortable at doing it from here directly with the mouse. It's just faster and more practical, and we're gonna see this a lot during the course of the video. Next, we're gonna look at the appearance section of our right panel. First option on top is the opacity slider, where we can change the visibility of our objects on screen. Then when we have our rectangle selected, we're gonna have this option here, which enables you to change the border radius of the rectangle. So if I put, let's say 20 for example, as you can see, all the radiuses have been changed to 20 pixels. I can change the radius individually in every corner. So let's say I want to change just the top left one and the bottom right one. That's the result. So the next option we have here on the right is the fill option. Thanks to this, you can change the fill of your shapes and objects. You can use the slider here to pick different colors, and the other slider on the right controls the opacity. Also, using the plus down here at the bottom, if you like a color you're using, you can add this color and use it later. You're gonna see these colors here on all the screens and artboards you're gonna create under the same file, which is pretty handy. Aside from solid colors, you'll be able also to use gradients. So you have the bar here with the handles on the left and the right. You're gonna be able to change them. So moving back to solid colors, the last thing you can use here is the color picker, which allows you to pick any color you see on the screen, and it's gonna be reused in your shape and in the object that you're trying to change the color for. Moving at the bottom, we have the border controls. As you can see here, I can change the color and the size of the border of every object I have on screen. You can disable it if you want, and also in this case you have a color picker allowing you to use any color on the screen. Then moving down, we have the shadow option. So here from the X and Y options, we can change the orientation of the shadow. As you can see, with a positive X number, I'm gonna display a shadow on the right. With a negative number, it's gonna appear on the left. And then with the Y axis, it's gonna appear on the bottom with a positive number, and on top with a negative number. This one here, the B value, is the blur value of the shadow. As you can see, it gets very solid if it's a low number and more blurry if you raise the number. And then from here you can change the color of the shadow and its opacity. And moving down, we have the background blur, which is the last option in this panel. And we're gonna see this later when we're gonna design our application. For now, we're just gonna skip it. It's usually you use this option with some background images. It's gonna be clearer to explain with that. I think we're done here. We've seen all the options included in the interface, and see you on the next lecture. In this lecture, we're going to have a look at the most common shortcuts in Adobe XD. I suggest you get familiar with these as early as possible so that you can be faster and more productive from the get-go. First of all, we need to learn how to move around the canvas properly. To do that, we can press the spacebar on the keyboard, and as you can see, the mouse cursor turns into a little hand, and by clicking and dragging while still holding the spacebar, you're gonna be able to move around the canvas and move to other parts of the screen. Then we need to learn how to zoom in and out. To do that, you need to select the zoom tool, which you can do from here, or you can use the shortcut, which is the letter Z, and it gets selected automatically. Once you have the tool selected, you can zoom in by clicking simply, or holding the Alt key, you can zoom out. You can also zoom in and out using the mouse wheel, if you have it, of course. By using the mouse wheel up, it's gonna zoom in, and down, it's gonna zoom out. You still need to hold the Alt key. There are also a couple of other shortcuts which we should look into. So for example, right now you see from here that our zoom level is 64.2. If we want to go to 100% in one shot, we just need to use the Command 1 shortcut. And there we go. This is 100%. If you want to go 200%, we're going to use Command 2. And if we want to see all the artboards included in our canvas, we use Command 0. At the moment we only have one, but let me show you what we can do if we have another one up here, and we can move it just a little here, and we set the focus of the screen here. If we hit Command 0, we're gonna see all of them. To select and move elements on your design, you're gonna use the Select tool, which you can activate over here or with using the letter V. This is very important. You're gonna use it all the time, and you really need to learn how to use the letter V constantly. So once this is selected, you can basically click on any element of the screen, an artboard or any element like a shape or a piece of text. And once it's selected, you can drag it and move it around the screen. You can also select two elements at the same time by clicking and dragging. And then you can move both of them at the same time. Or as another example, you can create 3 rectangles like this, and let's say I want to select the one at the top and the one at the bottom. You can just do that by holding the Shift key on the keyboard and clicking on them, and this way only 2 of them are going to be selected. When moving elements around, there's another couple of situations where it's pretty handy to use the Shift key. For example, in this case, let's say we have this rectangle at the top and I want to move it at the bottom of the screen. If I hold the Shift key on the keyboard, I just make sure that the horizontal position doesn't change. It just gets dragged down perfectly, maintaining the same orientation. Same thing happens if I want to drag it horizontally. If I hold the Shift key, it doesn't change its vertical position. While, as you can see, if I just try to drag it back up without holding Shift, I'm a bit shaky, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna position it in the right position. One more thing I can do is hold the Shift key when I'm using the arrow keys to move things around. When this happens, you're moving things around by 10 pixel increments. So in this case, if I move down, hitting the down key 3 times, I know that I moved the rectangle down by 30 pixels. Going back to our toolbar on the left, few remaining things that you really need to learn how to use as a shortcut for are the rectangle tool, letter R, the ellipse tool, letter E, and the text tool, letter T. You're gonna use this literally all the time, so it's better if you just learn them. Another operation we're gonna do all the time is duplicating elements. We can do this in 3 ways. First one is select the element you want to duplicate and hit Command D. Second way is the simple copy and paste by using Command C and then Command V, pasting it. And the third one is holding the Alt key and click and drag. I think this is my favorite one, as I find it the most convenient to do, but you feel free to use whatever you want. Another operation we're gonna do very often is creating groups of layers. So for example, if I'm gonna create a text here and I want to move it on top, and I want to create a group for this button, I'm just gonna select both the layers and use the Command G key shortcut. And as you can see, there's a new group created here containing those 2 layers. Another operation you're gonna see me doing very often is locking layers. So for example, if we have a rectangle here at the bottom, which is gonna be a background of some sort, and we don't want this layer to be selected or moved around, we can just hit Command L and this layer would be locked. As you can see, there's a little icon, lock icon here. And with the select tool, if you try to select it or move it around, you just cannot do that. And one final shortcut for a very common operation that you've seen me doing so far is the undo or redo function. So for example, if I want to change the color of this button to pink and I don't like that and I want to cancel the last action, you just hit Command Z and it goes back to blue. If I want to go back to pink again, I want to redo that action, so I'm gonna hit Command Shift Z. We will probably see more shortcuts later on during the course, but for now these are the ones that by far are the most used. Once again, try to learn them all, they're gonna be very useful for you. See you in the next lecture.